lesson. I think last week some of the guys missed the announcement on the practical assignment that we need to do on the 5th. Thank you guys for your response. This yeah, it has made it so easy to decide on the date, as everybody agreed on the 5th, from my understanding. So on the 5th, we're going to meet at, if we can aim for 12:30 for one, that would be great, so that at least we can start right on time and be able to finish and give the worship guys their time at 3. So for those who missed the announcement last week, what I would like us to do on Saturday, the 5th, is to have you do a presentation of a lecture that's going to be 10 minutes long. And what I would want you to do is to pick a passage, a very short passage from the Bible, and let me know which passage you're going to use. I was thinking of giving you, but I just realized I might give you something that's a little bit maybe difficult for you to develop a teaching from. So I'd rather have you choose what you are comfortable with, but it can't be too long, more than 5 verses, but also it can be more than, less than 3 verses. So at least 3 verses, and for the sake of time, maximum maybe 5 to 7 verses, the most. So you choose your own passage, you let me know ahead of time, and then I will know where you're gonna be teaching from. And then when we meet on Saturday, you have a 10-minute slot to do your presentation. And basically what I'm looking for is to see you applying the things that we've been learning in this course, and the things that we continue to learn. And I'll give you feedback, each and every one of you, I'll give you feedback, both positive, and if there is anything negative, something you can do better, I will also let you know. So if things are not clear with you, please let me know so that I can clarify what's not clear. But it's very easy, very simple. My expectation is just for you to do a little presentation. And tonight we're gonna cover some of the things that you can make use of in preparing for that, as we are gonna be talking about preparation tonight. So if you have any questions, even around this, at the end of this lecture, please ask, and I can clarify what's not clear. For now, we're gonna move on to tonight's discussion. It's not gonna be very long, because I just thought of selecting what's gonna be helpful for you for the next assignment that we're going to have. Planning to teach.
Please.
They say that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Okay? Don't know if you've heard that phrase, but I'm going to repeat it. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Teaching, lectures, they need planning. And planning always takes place ahead of time. For those in construction, particularly in painting, you probably know this, that 75% of the time goes into the preparation, and the actual painting goes so quick that it takes about 25% of the time. So you realize that the actual painting, which is gonna be amazing and it's gonna be glorious and a nice painting, and that's what people are going to see when they walk by a house, or when they walk into a room. They're going to see the painting, the final touch of the painter, but they don't see the work that was done, which is probably about 25% of the time. that was consumed. They don't see that part. All they see is the final product, which was done within the 25% of the time. And they look at that and they can make judgments on how beautiful the place is. And also the same applies to teaching and lectures and preaching, because what happens is you maybe, for example, the Sunday morning preach, you have the most about, say, maybe 40 minutes to an hour, the most of preaching, of teaching, but you don't spend an hour in preparation. You spend days and days preparing for just 1 hour if you are teaching or preaching for an hour. So you realize that if you fail planning, which is the preparation, which is the bigger part of what you need to do for an hour, if you fail to do that, then what are you going to do within an hour is not going to be as effective as it would have been if you had spent time in preparation. I love what Jesus does, and he always, you look in the Gospels, he wakes up early in the morning. The Bible would say he would wake up early in the morning, and then he will isolate himself. And you look at that, it's a time of preparation that Jesus himself took, so that when he goes into ministry, he's prepared for what's coming. And I think even us too, we need preparation, we need planning, and the planning is key to success in terms of reaching the maximum results that you want to achieve. And so we're going to be talking about preparing the teacher. Now, the first thing is really spiritual preparation. And this is very important because we're dealing with the spiritual matters when it comes to teaching the Word of God and teaching the Bible. It's a spiritual book. It's not just some kind of a book that you can make notes from and teach like a science book. This is a spiritual book, and if we're gonna be effective in teaching the content of the Bible, we need to also prepare ourselves spiritually so that we can engage with the material and the students well in what we need to achieve. And so what that means is we need to pray for guidance. And it's important that even if you know what book of the Bible you're going to teach, to pray for the Holy Spirit to guide you as you begin to do the preparation of what you're going to teach. You need the guidance of the Holy Spirit because he knows much more than you can imagine. He even knows the audience that's coming. So when you pray for his guidance, and if you get his guidance, you can achieve maximum results in your lecture or in your teaching. Pray for wisdom and discernment. Very important. We gotta seek the wisdom of God in dealing with the scriptures, what God wants to accomplish through us. We need his wisdom to come through, discernment to discern when to say what and when not to say what. All of that can only come if we begin to discern. Sometimes words we just want to come out of your mouth, but through discernment, you can choose the right words to speak and actually achieve maximum results. Illumination also very important. What that means is as you read the passage from the Bible, if it's a passage you want to teach from, you need the Holy Spirit to bring to light, to give you that revelation of what's there, what's in that context of what you want to try and teach from. So illumination, very important. It's an insight into what's there. And pray for enablement. And this is the power to do what you want to do. Pray that the Holy Spirit will give you the power so that you can do what you need to do. get you the grace that you need to achieve what you want to achieve. So very important to be prepared spiritually because we are dealing with spiritual matters. Then the second part of that preparation that the teacher needs to have is that of studying. I would say on this one, study, 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 and study some more. Studying is very important. And studying is different from reading. You see, you can read a novel, you can read a passage even from the Bible or a book from the Bible. But when you study, it's different because you're not just reading through like one reading a historical book, but when you study, you begin to deal with phrases in the Bible. You start to deal with a word usage in the Bible. You start to look at a lot of things. It's not just information now that you are dealing with, but you are going deeper into what's written and into what's there. So you begin to study in preparation for what you're teaching. Very, very important. And in doing so, there's three things that you are in need of in this particular. So these are basic three things that I believe are quite key and important because that's what you want to do. So the first thing is to observe. In other words, what do you see? So as you read a passage from the Bible, if it's John chapter 15, you're reading and you're reading, what is there? What do you see? Observe. Sometimes we come to the Bible with the preconceived ideas and preconceived things that we want to bring into the Bible, and we want to make the Bible to say what's already within us. So when we do so, we're not coming to observe what's in the scriptures. We need to actually observe what's there. So in other words, let's try by all means, and this is very difficult, it's not easy, but let's try by all means to come almost empty-handed, as it were, to the scriptures. Bring ourselves as an empty container, empty vessel, that as we read, we then fill ourselves with what's in the Bible or in the passage by observing what's there, what you see as you read. Very, very important. So the second thing is then the interpretation of what you see. I'm sure you probably have done a course, if not yet, I'm sure it's coming, principles of biblical interpretation. That's where you bring those principles and then you apply them in interpreting what's written. There's a need for us to interpret because remember, the books of the Bible were written in a different time than us, to a different group of people. There are language issues, so you find there's a lot of barriers that we need to cross in bringing the scriptures to us today. And what that means is we have to interpret the scriptures. We have to find what it means for us today. You see, when the scripture says whatever it says, what does that mean for us today, here and now? Very important. It was said then and there, but then we need to bring that to here and now. So once we observe what was said back then we bring it to here and now through the means of interpretation. What does that mean for us today? That is the second thing that I believe is important, is key. Like I said, you must have done, or maybe you're going to do that course called, principles of biblical interpretation. Those principles are important because they guide us into finding the right meaning to what's written in the scriptures. If we don't use those principles, that's when we can come out with a different understanding, and this one thinks it means this, and that one thinks it means that, and that can cause sometimes confusion. But when we follow those principles, of biblical interpretation, then we have at least some guidelines that are put in place by those principles. So very important to observe and also to interpret. Can you see the link here? We have to observe what's there, because if we don't observe what's written, we will have, even if we apply the right principles of interpretation, if we miss observing what's there, we will arrive at a wrong conclusion. So it's vital that we observe what's in the scriptures and we interpret that we interpret that using the principles of biblical interpretation. Then the last thing is application. So these are the things that are in your mind as you doing the study. Observation, interpretation, you wrestling with the scriptures, but also to have in mind that this thing that you're studying, that you're observing and interpreting needs to be applied in our daily lives. So in other words, what is it that is going to change in us? Because in application means there's going to be some change of behavior, attitude, or whatever change that it's going to do in our lives. So it's very important that observation takes place, interpretation takes place, but also have room for the application. All right.
Sorry, Pastor, you can ask you to mute everyone, please.
All right, I think it's all good. So I hope that was clear. If any questions, please write them down so that we can discuss them at the end of the lecture. Then moving on to our next slide, still talking about preparing to teach. Now, in preparation, we have to have a goal in mind. What is it that we want to achieve? I think we've spoken about this before. So we have to define the objectives of what we want to achieve and write them down clearly. It's like a vision. That's what you want to see being achieved at the end of your lecture. So it's important to have this in place, and that's going to help us to even decide what what methods to use in your presentation. If you remember, we spoke about methods of teachings and lecture and storytelling and the rest. So when you have objectives in place, you are able to then choose the most effective method to achieve your goal. So very important that in preparing to teach, we determine the goal. And also, as part of preparing, to bear in mind the time that you have for your presentation. This is quite important as well. You know, sometimes a preacher, you forget that you need to preach for an hour, for whatever the time is. And if you don't have that in mind, sometimes you prepare what you need to preach for an hour, and sometimes you can finish it within 15 minutes. And and then there's all 45 minutes of time that you would not consume or use simply because in your preparation, you did not take or bear in mind the fact that you've got 40 minutes or 1 hour. So very important to keep in mind. Some as well, they forget and they prepare for 2-3 hours of teaching, but yet they only have 1 hour allocated for them. So very important. This part, sometimes we overlook it, but it's also very important to take note. What is the time that I have? And as you do your preparation, to try and make sure that you prepare your presentation or your lecture to fit within the time that you have. Also, here, decide teaching method. You notice always restricted to one teaching method. As we, I think, looked at it last time, you can mix teaching methods where you can use, even right now, it's a lecture method, but we also have a PowerPoint presentation. And you can have illustrations, stories in your presentation as well, in your lecture. So I think the mix of methods is gonna be very helpful rather than try to stick to one. So mixing methods, but you would have decided the primary teaching method that you're going to use. If it's a lecture method, you can still bring others, but that becomes your dominant method that you're gonna be using. And of course, that again, your objectives will determine what kind of teaching method is gonna be most effective. Make an outline. So like I said to you the other day, you know, you have an introduction, and we're gonna look at that in a moment. Introduction, your body, and your conclusion. That's pretty much what you want to have. And then within your body, you can have your points. If it's 2, if it's 3, then you can have your points nicely there. An outline helps you to stay within what you want to achieve. Remember, you have got a goal in mind. If you don't have an outline, you don't have a roadmap to get you to where you want to go. So to have an outline is quite also important, because then that becomes almost like a roadmap to achieve your goal, and also to help you to stay on your material that you want to present, so that you can stay within the time frame that you have for your lecture. Otherwise, without an outline, you might be going this way and go this way and sweat that way, because you've got nothing to guide you. I look at an outline as a skeleton. You know, every single one of us has got a skeleton that is that's where our flesh is hanging on, and that's where we see the rest of us. But on the inside is that skeleton. So I see that as the outline that helps you to give you the shape of what you want to achieve or to bring across. So very important to have an outline. Decide on your introduction. So you have your outline and your introduction. How is it gonna look like? How is it gonna sound like? Is it gonna help you to hook the people? Because that's what you want. You want people to be glued. Oh man, I want to hear what this man has to say. I want to hear what this woman has to say. Why? Because you managed to capture their attention in your introduction. Because you might have some important points in your body, but if your introduction is not catchy enough, you might lose up to 50% of the audience in that moment. And to pick them, it's gonna be challenging, because many of them, they're already thinking what's for lunch, or they're already planning the rest of the week, sitting there thinking, hey, I wasted my time coming here. But if you catch them with a good introduction and you hook them, you're likely to have them for the rest of your lecture, for the rest of your teaching. So very important to decide on your introduction and to realize that this is quite an important time, because you're gonna give them a good impression to wanna hear what you're bringing, what you are gonna be talking about. Then once you have decided on your introduction, then you develop your body. So in other words, flesh out the main idea or the main theme. Remember, you have a goal, you have an objective. And as you teach, you're teaching on an idea, you're teaching on a specific theme that you have picked up. And now is the time to flesh out, to say more, to say as much, of course, within the time as you want to say on that particular idea, on that particular point. What that means, you might have few sub-points to support, again, just that one theme. And that's gonna be a lot of information giving out. And again, to realize as well that you need to plan and decide on your conclusion. What change do you wanna see? This is that moment now. You hook people with an introduction. They have been listening to you as you're saying what you were saying. Now you have to appeal for a response. In other words, change. This is the moment that you bring application into their lives, the very thing that you've been talking about. Now is the time for it to be applied. How do they put it into their into their lives? How do that apply to them? This is the moment. This is the time that you bring that and help people to take something with them, to take something home with them. All right. For the sake of time, moving on here. This is not necessarily part of the preparation building up to the class or lesson or teaching or lecture, but something that you need to have in mind as part of your planning, and that is the review of the class session and the evaluation of it. It's quite important for you afterwards to sit down and ask questions. Did I communicate clearly? Okay. I know sometimes this is quite challenging because you can't deceive yourself, but there's a need for us to ask that question. Did I communicate clearly? And sometimes you can make use of a friend or of your spouse to say, look, you were there, sitting there. How was my communication? Did I communicate clearly, or what can I do better in my communication? And try to get as much feedback that can help you in the future. And also, did the students understand the lesson? Maybe challenging to find out, but the response, the feedback, if you still remember, we spoke about feedback, that as you lecture, as you teach, which is quite challenging here at this moment because I can only see 2 of you, and the rest, I'm not sure what feedback you have. I see Washington has got his hand on his chin. I'm not sure whether that means he's listening, he's getting it, or he's thinking. I'm not sure about that. You know, it's processing. You're thinking. so on this platform, it's a little bit challenging to get that feedback. But in a classroom setting, you are able to get feedback, and you can tell whether the students are understanding you or understanding the lesson or not. So it's also important to go, sit down. Did the students understand the lesson? The questions that get asked sometimes can be an indication that some things were not so clear, that they did not understand, and they ask the questions to seek clarity. And so very important to try and find out, did you accomplish your goal? Remember, when you started, you have a goal in mind. So was that goal accomplished? Did you manage to achieve that goal? The students may not have known what the goal was, but you coming, you had a goal, you had a clear objective. Was that accomplished? Did you manage to get to the goal? Very important to look back. Sometimes maybe you started teaching, but you got deviated so much so that you ended up on the other side of things than you originally prepared. So very important to ask that question in this lecture. Did I accomplish my goal? Very important. And also, I think above all of them, what can you do better in the future? What can you do better the next time you're gonna be standing to do a presentation, to do a lecture? What can you do better? And I think every single one of us can do better. There's always room for improving, to be better, to be better than yesterday, to be better tomorrow than today. So this question, very important. What can you do better in the future? I think if we all ask ourselves this question every time we do a lecture presentation, and we get answers to that, man, we will be far better teachers very quickly in our lives. So I think very important to ask that question, what can you do better in the future? You can ask others as well. You don't have to be the only one trying to help yourself. You can ask others to help you so that you can be better in the future. Now, speaking of preparation, and I thought I'll end tonight with this slide with about 3 things that I want us to look at about a successful teaching preparation. And really depends on the time invested. We spoke earlier about the time invested. And it's not just the time invested in preparation, but in the preparation of the right material, you know, to prepare the right material. I read a story of, I think I was doing the similar course when I was still in, in college. We had a story of, I think we read a story of a professor. It's an old story that's been told over and over, of a professor in England who was a very good professor, well known. I think he was he specialized in Shakespeare, William Shakespeare stories, you know. And so he prepared a lesson. I mean, he's been teaching and lecturing for years, so he really knows this stuff. And so he prepared to go and teach a class. And as he was preparing, and I think he did his best in preparation and invested a lot of time in preparation. But when he got to the class, the whole class is there, is packed, everyone is waiting for him and excited for the day and for the lesson of the day. And he comes, and then he noticed that he prepared a wrong passage or a wrong subject to the one that he was supposed to teach. Of course, he knew the subject, he knew the stuff, but he decided that he was not going to teach the class because he was not prepared. He dismissed the class, and it was quite a story that circulated, and many people read about it to this day. We're telling it. Of course, he knew the stuff, but he decided that he was not going to teach because he was not prepared. He did not invest the time. He did not spend some time in the preparation for it. So you realize that even the good lectures, even if you have done this stuff, you know the stuff well, you still need to refresh yourself with the content of the subject matter so that you are on top of the game. So how do you do that? You have to invest the time. You invest the time in the preparation. What does that mean? You say time invested in preparation reflects how serious the teacher is about what he's doing. If the teacher is not so much serious about what he wants to teach, man, he can invest the 5 minutes and he doesn't really care because he's not serious about it. But if someone is serious about what they're going to present, about what they're going to lecture, man, they will invest time into it because it's important to them. So very important for us to take note of the time invested as a reflection of how serious the teacher is on that subject. The material used. So in other words, the things that the teacher have used in the lecture shows us or reflect to us the creativity and the diligence of the teacher. You see, the choice of the material, the choice of what the teacher is going to use, whether that's making use of the PowerPoint presentation, the creativity that you see in the presentation of the lecture itself, the material used reflects the creativity behind and also the diligence that have been put by the teacher in the preparation. Because for someone to to have what they have, sometimes they go an extra mile in preparation in getting the creativity side. Not many people are creative, but if you see creativity, if you see diligence, you'll see it in the material used. You'll see it in the choice of the material that the lecture will be using. So successful teaching preparation actually also depends on the choice of the material that's going to be used. The third thing, which is the last thing for tonight here, is the attitude of the lecture, the attitude of the teacher. What that reflects is how much the teacher cares about the students and how much he or she enjoys teaching and how much he or she loves God. So the attitude, when you look at the lecture, he stands before the class and is he showing the excitement? Is he, excited about teaching? Does he show, care for the students and his love for God? Can people catch something of what he carries in terms of his love for God in that class? So his attitude, very important. You stand before people, your attitude speaks much more sometimes than what you would say verbally. So very important that we have the right attitude in presenting the material that we do. We show the excitement, the enthusiasm of what we're saying, and also to show that we do care about those that we speak to are very, very important. All right. Without wasting much time, I'm hoping that these are some of the things that you guys can bring through on Saturday the 5th. Things that we can see in you and the preparation, the materials that you're going to use, the stories that you're going to use, the illustrations that you're going to use in your little short presentation that you're going to do. So any questions and comments, please, you're welcome to make them at this point. And yeah, let me exit here so I can see more of you. This end the stop sharing. Awesome. Any comments, questions that you might have so that we can have a bit discussion, even if it's comments on the assignment itself for the 5th. By the way, my hope is that I will make an announcement. If we meet on Saturday, the 5th, then what that also means is, let me just get here and see the dates. What that also means is we won't have a class, it will be replaced either the 3rd or the next week, which will be the 10th. But I'll decide which one is gonna be replaced by the Saturday, okay? So I'm not just wanting us to have time for Saturday, but I would also take one of the Thursday away so that we don't have to do the Zoom thing. Is that making sense? Making sense? Okay, cool. But I'll let you guys know which Thursday, either the 3rd or the 10th. And then, yeah, then maybe we have the either the, yeah, I don't want to say that now because I haven't looked at the rest of the other things we need to cover. But for now, any comments, questions that you might have? Hi, Bo. No comments, no questions, no nothing. Well, some of you already, you can't wait to go to bed because it was easy that today, yeah? Tonight, rather. Yes, Moffat, go ahead.
All right, it's just a question on the next coming Saturday. So what are we going to cover with, like, we will use everything from the beginning of this book towards where we are today. Is that correct?
That is correct. You don't have to, what's the question now? Remember, you have 10 minutes.
Yes. That's why I want to find out more clear there. Yes.
It's not gonna be long, so don't prepare like one who's preparing for an hour. but you use the principles. Remember, the subject we have is called teaching principles and methods, right? So you need to use the principles and the methods that we have learned in this course to prepare and present a 10-minute teaching.
All
All the
right,
things
thank you so much.
Is that answering your question?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, cool, great. By the way, 10 minutes for some of you, you think, oh man, that's like very short. I in some of the courses I did, one in particular, I had 5 minutes. 5 minutes. I was given 5 minutes, the whole class. Each one had 5 minutes. And there was the timer. If you reach your 5 minutes, and then you had to stop. Whether you're still in your introduction, that's fine. You needed to stop there. And we knew ahead of time that I had 5 minutes. So 10 minutes is quite a lot for you to do a short presentation, a short lecture. You can use 2.5 minutes to do your introduction, and use 5 minutes to say whatever you want to say, and then use the last 2.5 minutes to conclude what you want to say. So I think it's very easy. You've got the time, 10 minutes. You can actually do a little teaching presentation. And also that's going to have to train you in your mind to realize that you can just communicate what's important from there without saying much. If you can simplify it, then people will understand you. But anyway, I'm not going to say much, just to follow the principles and the methods of teaching that we've been talking about. I'm sure it's going to be great. I will give you feedback, and yeah, looking forward to that. Any more comments, questions? Hoshia, do you want to say something there? Anyone else? Mike, was that is it? Okay. Oh, Pastor Osman, you can go ahead. Your camera is a little bit up, so, but I didn't see your hand. But Pastor Osman, you are still on mute. Maybe if you can unmute yourself. Yeah, now you are. Yeah.
Okay, I want to just once to be clear. You see, you're not going to give passage. Somebody need to present. Everyone must use himself. You have a passage that you have. If someone use that, it's right for everyone to choose his own passage to share.
That's correct. Each one will choose their own passage. If they want to do, for example, John chapter 3 from verse 1 to 5, that is a passage they want to use. That's fine. If another person uses the same passage on the other side, it's still okay. That would be, there's no problem as well with that. So you can choose, but what I want to request is if you can let me know ahead of time so that I can make note of who is doing from which passage. And also I can just get ready as to what you might have to say.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else?
You mean a passage or give you the book what I'm going to play or passage that I've stated. Yesterday, I stated Luke chapter 10 from verse 1 to 6, or the whole person that I have present first to you, give you the information, then present the class.
But Pastor Osman, can you hear me? I struggled to hear. I think there's a bit of a problem with the internet.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying in the matter of preparation, maybe you want someone to give you this, what I want to do. So I mean, is it on the book or the whole assignment you want to present? Is supposed first to me to use is what I'm going to present in the class, only the chapter.
Only the passage. So if it's John chapter 3, verses 1 to 5, you can just SMS, WhatsApp me. My assignment is going to be on John chapter 1, verse 1 to 5. That's all I need. The rest of the lecture, how you're gonna do it and all of that, you don't have to submit it to me. I will hear you in class on that Saturday doing your presentation. All I'm going to need is to just know from which passage in the Bible you're going to do your lecture from. That's all I need.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Was that helpful for everybody else? Okay, cool. Thanks a lot for that question, Pastor Osman. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else?
So, and the other assignment is not ready.
Can you come again, Pastor Osman?
Yeah, the other assignment that you say are going to prepare is ready for the workbook assignments.
So what I've decided after I've spoken to a pastor is that I do have some of the things that you sent. I will still have to go through all of them. But what's going to be important for me, even if you didn't send, is this one, the one that we're going to do on Saturday, the 5th. That one is going to be more important to me. It's not really in the, you can still do this for your own self, but not really important for the class now. What's going to be important for me is the one that we're going to do. It's almost like the practical side of what we've been talking about. And that's for me more important than just getting things in our heads and never really get to apply them or to see an effort from you applying them. So that's going to be the assignment. That's going to cover almost everything else that they've done in the book.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So
Thanks to you. Ryton?
yeah, Tonix now.
Oh, Tonix, go ahead, and then we're gonna go to Ryton. Yes.
Yeah, I just want also to ask about the dressing on that day. Must we just dress casually, or we need to dress well presentable?
Nah, the dress code, no problem. You just, you remember we discussed that day, you just, you don't have to put on a suit. You can just dress as normal, just casual if you want to. Yeah, I don't have a dress code for this. Just yeah, feel free. Yes, that's the point.
Or
Just feel free.
You not deduct marks, eh?
No, that won't count.
Right.
Don't worry. For me, I'm more concerned about what we've been talking about, the principles and the methods of teaching themselves.
Thank you.
But if you want to come with a 6-piece, I mean, go for it. If you want to come in a suit, it's fine. No problem. Ryton, you wanted to say something? You're on mute. You're on mute. If you're saying something, Ryton, you're on mute.
My question is, does this mean that we have to take only one passage without cross references?
Well, you have your passage. If you have some references, you're welcome to, as long as everything is going to be within that 10 minutes. So no problem. You can have references, but just remember you have 10 minutes.
No, okay.
Yeah.
Another question, Pastor.
Yes, you can go, sir.
I don't know how you're gonna help me, Pastor. I don't feel comfortable when I teach in English.
I hear you, but we have been doing the course in English, so just to do your best. I'm very aware of that, myself included, when I do lectures as well. But
Okay.
just do your best.
All right.
Just do the best you can.
Number one.
All right. I think it was you that I had one time on Facebook.
I don't think so. Maybe.
Yeah, if you did, I think it was you who was doing a live thing on Facebook.
I think
You're
so.
reading. You were reading even from scriptures, but you see, I couldn't listen any longer because I didn't understand. So just do your best what you can. And if you can do that in English, man, I tell you, in Chichewa, you will be like fantastic. So do your best, and then and that's gonna actually help you even in your Chichewa language as well.
I will do better, Pastor. Don't worry.
All right, looking forward. Can't wait.
Cool.
Any more comments? All right. Seems that's it for the night. And yeah, thank you so much for